And now, your official TigerBait live show with Mike Scarborough and Buddy Songi starts now.
All right, Tiger fans, as you can see, Buddy Songi out tonight, a little under the weather. Jacques Doucet, as always, is Johnny on the spot, filling in at the last minute. I've got a bad habit about reaching out to Jacques about 90 minutes before I might need him. And, of course, he's always gracious enough to give us his time. And but we got a lot to talk about. Big Kim Mulkey press conference today. We're on the eve of the biggest game in LSU women's basketball history, probably as far as a home game. And big whiteout and all the fanfare with ESPN Game Day. LSU makes it official with some football coaching hires. And I probably about the same time I asked Jacques to come on and fill in, the word's out that Harbaugh is hired by the Chargers. And but they're expected to hire from within at Michigan. We can discuss that. I'm sure that might be on some of your minds. And what else? LSU men's basketball just dropped a heartbreaker at Georgia. So we're going to get to all that and more. So welcome in, Jacques.
Mike, thanks for having me. Great to be with you. Bud, man, hopefully you feel better. The weather's crap right now. The whole month of January has been crap as far as the weather goes. So let's get Buddy good for the spring. We'll go hit the little white ball. We'll go play 18 holes, Bud. So hopefully you're back at it soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, did you go back to the circle back to the PMAC at 5 o'clock for the ESPN interviews?
No, actually, LSU Media Alert sent out that they had the date wrong. That's going to be tomorrow, they said.
Okay.
Thursday and not Wednesday. So Carolyn Peck and is it Andrea Carter, the ESPN personality? I think 5:30 or something. They're available tomorrow.
Okay, well that's good, because I was look with this rain. It's got everybody debating this and that, and I didn't want to make the trip down Nicholson one more time. And so I'm kind of glad that is the case, but I was kind of wondering why I didn't see anything out there, but that's good. But obviously that's one of a lot of festivities. I looked at the weather earlier today. It looked like the weather might be clearing out afternoon. And so they've got food trucks and DJs, and they're letting the fans in early into the PMAC. And I saw your tweet a little while ago has Vegas odds of LSU getting 9 points. I didn't know that there was women basketball odds, but they exist.
Yeah, last year I covered that game, went to Columbia, South Carolina. I would think that last year's game was the most anticipated LSU women's basketball regular season game ever. If you remember, both teams were undefeated. I think LSU was number 3 in the country. They were 23-0. South Carolina was number 1, and they were 24, 25-0, whatever. And LSU walked into a buzzsaw. It was 18-2, I think, right off the bat. Alexis Morris was basically the only LSU Tiger who gave LSU a chance. I think she scored 23, 25, something like that. I think LSU cut it to like 10 or 8 in the third quarter. And then down the stretch, Camila Cardozo, the big 6'7" center, South Carolina just kept lobbing into her. It reminded me of like a football game in the fourth quarter where you give it to your big running back and he's just wearing you down. And you're like, look, we're out. We give up. So, so funny that, you walk away from that game, Mike, and you say, without a doubt, South Carolina is the best team in the country. You would not have said LSU is going to win the national title. And certainly I won't forget being in Dallas at the Final Four. LSU beats Virginia Tech in game 1. We're kind of running around doing post game, getting our stories done for 10. And I keep looking at the score. It's like, okay, I was hanging in there. Okay, it's halftime. Okay, into the third quarter. Then late in the game, they got the lead. And then Caitlin Clark to the hoop, won the game. It was like, holy cow, this thing's opened up. LSU got a shot to win the title. South Carolina, 36-1, Mike. Lost one game last year. They got to walk away and watch LSU win the title. I'm sure they were nauseous watching that. But
yeah, but what happened is obviously LSU at some point that week was starting to look like a team of destiny. Because a lot of there was upsets. It was kind of paving the way. That was the biggest one. But then you immediately start thinking, well, man, how good is Iowa? How tough is this going to be? Look what they just did.
Yeah.
And then for LSU to get in foul trouble and the shots that were falling in that first half, LSU wins the national championship. But I kind of think back, and maybe it was a question I kind of want to ask today, but I'd have to go back and look at the history. But when this league expanded, it used to be great when you could play an SEC team twice in a year, and it wasn't just one game. And I know last year the hope was maybe you'd get face South Carolina again in the SEC tournament. That didn't happen, but
yeah,
there's no denying it's been a long time since LSU's beaten South Carolina in women's basketball. And I know it says win or lose, both teams. There's bigger games to be had down the line, but it's kind of one that you'd like to check off the list and get it over with.
Well, I think it's 12 years since LSU has beaten South Carolina. Now, obviously, Kim Mulkey's only been part of 2 years of that. The first year South Carolina came here, I think they were number 1, and LSU had a double-digit lead in the second quarter and lost 66-60. Just couldn't rebound with South Carolina. Last year, obviously, the train went off the tracks. But, you look at what tickets are going for. You look people, as Patrick Wright told me, that the late great Stu Gunner is smiling somewhere to see that people are paying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a single ticket to a regular season women's college basketball game. So, or I don't know. Do you think people are paying that? I mean, that's what they're being.
Well, this is what I say. It's particularly with the weather, and if it doesn't clear out, is this kind of like college football playoff games where the prices get outrageous because people are wanting to see if they can get it. And then if you go back to StubHub or any of the other third-party ticket sellers at about 3:00 tomorrow afternoon, are you all of a sudden going to see prices drop down into the cellar? And look, I've told several friends today that really want to go to really watch that tomorrow, and don't be afraid of buying a 300 level seat, because as antiquated as the PMAC is, and it takes a lot of heat and abuse from fans, there really isn't a bad seat in the PMAC, and it's an event, and I think you're going to have a good time. And
well, real quick, from what I've seen for the weather, I think you're right. I think the bad stuff's in the morning, and by 2-3 o'clock, the rain chances are really dying down. So, knock on wood, but I don't think the nasty weather is going to be around in the afternoon when it's time to go to the game.
Yeah, and it's a arena, but look, obviously they're doing the stuff outside beforehand. But I think that might be cleared up by then anyway. So, all right, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please hit that like button. I want to get to some of y'all's questions. Of course, brought to you by Pride Roofing, the official roofing company of TigerBait.com, Koala, Insulation, and Alumni Hall, and others. Okay. Roger Ramsey, hey, Mike and Buddy. It's Mike and Jacques. Good to be with y'all tonight. Payback time for the girls. Go Tigers. Fire 3449. Just watched LSU get screwed with several bad calls. Georgia Center should have been called for over the back on their last bucket. Almost won. LSU had too many dumb passes, resulting in turnovers.
Yeah, Hunter Dean was just kind of out-muscled there in that last shot. He was boxing out. I guess you could have called over the back on Georgia. And then LSU, last play of the game, they slingshot a ball the length of the floor, basically about 85 feet. Jordan Wright catches it clean. He turns, he lets it go. 3-pointer, in and out. And when things have been going the way they've gone for LSU men's basketball, that thing does not drop and you don't get any breaks. It was not a beautiful basketball game. I don't think either of these two teams are outstanding at the moment, but certainly, a game in the 60s, obviously. Georgia's nothing special. Another tough loss for LSU.
Well, the game Saturday with A&M, of course, beat them to open SEC play at College Station. That was one you really would have liked to have had because, I think you and I talked about it. I talked to a bunch of other media that cover the beat. And when I asked what's the over-under on how many SEC games this team's going to win, they thought it was 4. Well, they got to 3 in a hurry. And now you wonder, will they stagnate for a while? But look, obviously they were competitive tonight on the road. I think they're playing better. I think there's some reasons to be a little bit more upbeat than you probably were a month to 6 weeks ago about this team. And I think they're going to get some more wins than people think. But it's like I said, they're already almost to the where most people thought the maximum number of SEC wins they'd get, and you're not even, you're at the midway or it's right at the end of January.
Well, their next game, real quick, is at Alabama, and Coleman Coliseum, no matter who the LSU coach has been a house of horrors for them. Whether it's John Brady, Trent Johnson, Johnny Jones, Will Wade, you go to Alabama, you lose. That's what has happened over the years. So that's going to be tough, especially now with Nate Oates, perhaps one of the cockier coaches that we have seen in college basketball in recent memory.
You were in Tuscaloosa last week, and I've been joking. I said I'm watching Jacques on TV, and he's on the baseline, and he could have laid out and taken a nap. He had the whole place to himself for the largest crowd in Alabama women's basketball history. And what was that like when you've seen now firsthand? I think you're talking about maybe going to Starkville on Monday. What is that like, seeing this traveling roadshow of this LSU women's basketball team and how they're greeted by fans of other schools who are coming out to see the LSU Stars? It's kind of reminiscent of the stories I heard growing up about Pete Maravich going on the road and fans coming out to see him play, and that was it.
Well, now is kind of moving into the sports director role. When you make trips, you got to watch the money, how much we spend. I stayed right across the street from the arena for $130 a night. I asked the guy, I said, what would it cost to stay here for, say, the Iron Bowl or an LSU Alabama game? He goes, well, sir, I can't tell you what it'll cost next year, but this year it was $2,300. I said, okay, well, I couldn't afford that. So it was $150 for a women's basketball game. And I walked across the street. First thing I saw was a 13-year-old girl holding up a sign, Coach Mulkey, it's my birthday. And I talked to them. I said, where are you from? Oh, we live here in Tuscaloosa. So they, were Alabama fans living in Tuscaloosa. When LSU ran out onto the floor out of their locker room, there was just a horde of teenage girls, young girls, with signs and everything for Flage, for Angel Reese, for Haley Van Lith, and a large contingent of LSU women's basketball fans were there, including the great Chris Guillot. He was there. And then, so after the game, LSU goes in the locker room, they have their talk, and then they come back out. And the security is there, and they're watching everything, but they go out and they sign autographs and take selfies and do all that stuff. So it really is cool to see.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, because I saw your footage that you posted, and I'm like, these are people wearing Alabama Crimson Tide gear, and they're sticking around for an hour and 15 minutes after the game's over for the chance to get a selfie or an autograph from one of the LSU star players. And it's unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah, and then the home game that you and I both were at against Arkansas this past Sunday, almost 13,000 paid when the weather was still kind of cold and miserable outside, on a Sunday afternoon. After the game, there are all these people out there, and Coach Mulkey goes out and she signs all the autographs and stuff. And, it's smart enough, just like, somebody, a musician who goes on tour, treat your fans right? I mean, if you treat them poorly, they're not going to come back. And, so it's not only about the winning, it's how you treat people, and LSU's doing a great job.
Absolutely. Hal Jubin says, fire, they can't rebound. The refs were fine. Edo's Nuss Bus Driver says, go Tigers. Dane Bergeron with a good evening, Mike and Jocks. And Derek Cannon, go Lady Tigers. Spectrum Wellcare, Sharon Moore will be Michigan's next head coach. That seems to be the gist of it. I talked to a guy that I go back with 20 years who's got the premier Michigan Wolverine website, and he says the same thing when I talked to him earlier today. So,
yeah.
Let's see.
It's important to listen to what is said and process it, okay? And what had been said, and quite honestly, I had heard some of the same things by people over there, was that if it came open and if they showed any interest in Brian Kelly, he might be interested too. Now, if they don't show any interest, then then nothing ever starts, right? So, it's a conversation that I think is not going to go anywhere. And I didn't talk about it on TV or anywhere like that. But just as we're having a conversation here, I heard stuff like that too from decent sources and people. So anyway, if they're going to promote this guy from within, then the Brian Kelly Michigan talk doesn't ever get off the ground.
Yeah. Well, it's now we wait to see regardless of the hire, what the NCAA does, if there's going to be any legs to anything of this national championship possibly having an asterisk for them.
John Eads will be very upset about that. WAFB employee. I mean, he's riding on cloud nine. He said Michigan wins the national championship. Detroit Lions are in the NFC championship game. I mean, if you're from Michigan, this is nirvana.
Look, it's easy to talk now because LSU's won 3 national championships in the last 20 years. But before Michigan won this title, and you really look at what they've done in the modern era, they're really kind of like Auburn. I mean, they're the blue blood, and one of the programs that you talk about being one of the more historical programs. But in reality, when you look at what they've done in Big Ten titles and national championships, some of that in the modern history really doesn't match what they've been selling for the longest period of time. I mean, heck, just go look at Bo Schembechler's 1-loss record in his title, number of titles. Les Miles got all wrapped up in that. Sometimes I'm scratching my head like, okay, man, enough already.
Well, I do respect there are certainly coaches, legendary coaches that never won a national title. I certainly think he's probably one of them. You win 80 whatever % of your games. I don't know what his record was, but certainly he's a legendary figure. Just didn't work out for him. I guess Ohio State or whoever else got in his way. But Bo Schembechler, the team, right?
But in reality, he was more like Pat Dye, wasn't he?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Pat Dye never won a title, right? I just remember those teams were really good. What the 1988 earthquake game team,
right?
That was the only game they lost, right? They're 11-1 that year, I think.
Yep. Like that. Chris Melder says, "I love the Slade Nagel hire, especially as special teams coordinator. See how quick BK makes the moves and really changes things. He's not going to double down on something that maybe isn't working just to be stubborn. There's nothing stubborn about him as far as anything we've seen. And he had that history at Notre Dame almost a decade ago where he made all the moves he needed to. He flat out told us that, didn't he, Jacques, back in November when talking about how he was going to evaluate things once the season were over. And he's made the right moves. That's all I got to say.
Well, I don't think that Brian Kelly and Twitter or X are a good marriage, okay? People on there are so emotional in the moment. They wanted to fire Matt House after the Ole Miss game in Oxford, which I don't blame them after you give up 55 points and you lose like they did. But he took a very thorough, long approach towards that in terms of getting his staff in place and his offensive coordinator. I guess you could say, well, what took so long to promote Joe Sloan when Mike Denbrock left on December the 22nd? But obviously he wanted to take a look around and decide if this was the best thing for him to do. So now, as you have brought up many times, time to get the players. All right. The coaches are there, but April is going to be pretty important, in my opinion, to how many games you win next year.
You know what? Anybody, and there's all our regulars a lot of them are here right now. And I've told you this too. It's in the last week or so, and especially particularly in pointing to Alabama and what's been happening to them in the portal. And once Saban retired and the fallout from it, whether I like LSU's defensive line and whatever issues they have there and whatever solution they come with to try and make it work, I do believe they're going to get some guys in May. And regardless of how salty they are or aren't, the fact of the matter is there's a whole lot of teams in the SEC that have some issues. But when you go week by week and you say, okay, I can say that because of LSU's defense up front, I think they're an 8-4 football team. But then when you start looking at the schedule, you're going week by week, and you're like, yeah, I don't like that defense up front. Yeah, I don't like the fact that maybe I'm unsure about who LSU's number 1 receiver or number 2 wide receiver is next year. You know, and I like what I saw out of Nussmeier in the bowl game. But when you go week by week, LSU's going to be favored in every single football game. The best team, I think, on LSU's schedule right now, looking at it, is Ole Miss, and you have them at home. So, is it parity? Is it? I think it is parity. The transfer portal has done a lot for parity, and I think there's a whole lot of teams that when you're talking about a 12-team playoff, there's going to be a lot of flawed football teams in there, and it's because of what the transfer portal has done to college football rosters.
Well, I think maybe the knee jerk when the schedule first came out was, I don't know, maybe we looked at name brands or whatever, and it was like, oh, this schedule's murder. But now with the Nick Saban retirement and taking a closer look at things, look, USC and UCLA, that's tougher than playing Northwestern State and I don't know whoever else. But those are big name brands. But obviously the season opener, I mean, I guess we say this every year when they play a big name team, but the season opener is going to have a lot to say about how this season goes. And, you know, it's going to be one of those atmospheres that's going to be second to none. Going to Las Vegas, flights are being booked left and right. Hotels are being booked up. A bunch of crazy Cajuns going to the desert to have a good time. So LSU has not won a season opener, as we know, since 2019. They've dropped 20, 21, 22, 24 in a row. So
there you go. All right, Pride Roofing. Let's hear from Mike and Alex real quick.
Hi, I'm Michael.
I'm Alex.
At Pride Roofing, we handle commercial and residential work.
TPO, shingle, and metal inventory.
We got it. Property still in disarray from the recent hailstorms. Insurance claims?
No problem. But you know Pride Roofing is the official roofer at TigerBait.com.
In fact, notify TigerBait and we'll give you a free roof inspection. And on top of that, you get a free year subscription. Call 855-PRIDE-16. Se habla español.
There you go, 855-PRIDE-16. Tell them you heard about them on TigerBait, and they're going to pay for you to have TigerBait Premium free for a year, and they've got you taken care of anywhere in South Louisiana. Pride Roofing. All right. Guy Brooks, Mike, always love your content. Great information about my LSU Tigers. Welcome, Jacques.
Thank you very much, Guy. Good to see you.
Chances with Bussy. He's going to visit next week, and I tend to think that the A&M commitment seems to look like it's going to hold, but look, you got to get him here. Let's see what happens. Faye Schubert, Mulkey could teach the defense to the LSU's men's basketball team. That was something we talked about today too.
She's still not happy with it though. She's still not, we're not playing defense. We're giving up too many points. That's what she keeps saying. So by the way, South Carolina, not to bore people with statistics, but just take a look at South Carolina. They give up 52 points per game, and opponents shoot 29% from the field against them, 25% from three. So LSU certainly with a challenge tomorrow night.
Bob Starkey. What is it? What do you think he's been doing the last 72 hours? I got a mental picture of him just wearing out the film room. And because this is a whole defensive deal. I think for several months, it was obvious to me, Alexis Morris was special, and Haley Van Lith has her moments, but defensively, it's kind of been a challenge. I think she's gotten better. I think the whole team defensively has gotten better since that Auburn loss. The last two games have been phenomenal. And maybe they've turned a corner. We'll see how many corners they have left to turn. I agree that the best of this LSU women's basketball team we haven't seen yet. But that was – look, the Colorado game was one thing, but that Auburn loss 2 Sundays ago, I think really woke them up. And we waited over an hour for Kim to show up, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that locker room to hear how she talked about it. But I think the LSU girls are just as hard on themselves and were as angry as she was. And, of course, I asked Kim that Sunday afternoon. She goes, just get it straight. No player's ever going to be as mad as me. So I thought that was pretty.
I didn't realize it. I glanced at the rankings. Do you realize Colorado's the 3rd-ranked team in the country?
They're fantastic.
I mean, it's not like they lost to Sisters of the Poor. I mean, it's a dynamite potential Final Four team in Colorado. So
look what Ohio State. Look what Ohio State just did with Iowa. I mean, that was an Ohio State team that came to Baton Rouge 2 years ago and eliminated LSU. That's LSU has seen the pinnacle of women's college basketball. I guess the only thing we haven't seen so far is LSU UConn, LSU Stanford.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you when LSU wins the title, all we remember is the ending, the parade and all that. Like, they were worried from the second round. Michigan had an experienced lineup. Bob Starkey before the game talking to me. He's like, man, this game worried. Utah, they told me, was the best team they played.
They still talk about Utah. They say that was their toughest game.
Yeah. And look, the ball's right there. The Utah girls got it. She puts it back up. LSU loses. That's it. But I think somebody knocked it out, LaDeja, and then the girl misses 2 free throws. And that's just, I don't want to call it luck, but it's just, that's how this thing goes, So.
That poor girl, that was heartbreaking for them. They were shell shocked.
Yeah. And then, I mean, really, your offense was pretty bad the whole NCAA tournament, including that Miami game that LSU won, 55-45, where Mulkey apologized after the third quarter that this was a terrible game to watch, but offense showed up just in time for sure.
What was really funny is it was awful. It was painful. Kim with her pulse on, knowing how bad it was for us to watch it.
Well, Patrick Wright said her first year when they played at UL Lafayette, remember they went to go over and play that game in the Cajun Dome. It was like 6-5 towards the end of the first quarter, and she literally turned around to the fans in the stands and said, "I'm sorry y'all paid money to see this. This is terrible." In the middle of the game.
John Sibley Butter, men's team needs to run the ball and stop playing 1950 half court. McMahon needs to put the clipboard down. That's been a bit of a gripe, hasn't it, Jacques? Overcoaching, maybe over substituting.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this team equipped to run? Can they do that? Are they playing too much in the half court? I mean, I worked and then I left the station and I watched the game on second half here. I didn't really watch the game Saturday. So I don't know. Did Terrell Ward not play tonight? Is I hearing that?
I didn't see the box score.
Yeah, that was a question.
I caught the back end. Let's see.
And as I've told you, heaven help us if McNeese wins the regular season, gets an automatic NIT bid, gets into the Southland Conference tournament, gets upset in the finals or something, and let's send McNeese to Baton Rouge for an NIT matchup. Just me thinking ahead at possibilities.
Can you imagine that? I'm really wondering what jobs Will Wade's going to be up for. When he first got that job, I said he's going to be 2 years and he's gone. It looked like it's going to be 1. And we've heard about DePaul in the last few days. What else might open up that he might be a real candidate for?
Yeah, that's going to be on message boards for years to come. Debate. Did LSU do the right thing with Will Wade? They're going to be talking about that for a long time.
You can on our message board on TigerBait, I don't think you can find a single person that thinks LSU made the right decision. And that's not anything. That's not a slap at McMahon. It's not. It's just Will Wade is his own separate entity. Bo Davis will make a 3-star, a 5-star. Don't sleep on Bama. Not sleeping on them, but I don't think most people are going to be as apt to automatically put that one is a long shot or not one you can win, or it's going to be more difficult, and you're not going to have a run of heartaches for years like you had when Saban was there. I just don't see it.
Well, like it or not, removing Saban from the dynamic makes the game much less interesting, much less hype-filled, much less emotional. And if you beat Alabama, quite frankly, it just won't feel as satisfying as if Little Nicky is on the other end. That's not a negative towards anybody. That's just reality.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of heartbroken people that have a lot of empathy for what the Alabama fans are going through right now in their little state of mourning.
I can
Kenny
just
Futch,
feel
good evening, Mike and Jacques.
the sarcasm coming through the screen here.
Yeah.
Kenny Futch, what's up, man? Kenny's in the gym working on his fitness. See Kenny on Sundays over at the gym. Always good to talk to him.
I see him at the women's game. He's always there near that shoot area. He's at almost all of them, if not every single one of them.
Yeah.
John Silby Butler, Lady Tigers have to shoot the ball well. If we do that, we are fine. They need to pick up the defense. The defense. Losing Samaya, that's a loss. But I also think defensively in the front court, that's kind of been LSU's bugaboo. And they're so talented, 1 through 5, 1 through 7, 1 through 8, whatever it is. But like Kim said today, when you get to this time of year, yeah, you can see the box score and see where they're playing 8 or 9 or whatever the number is. But when you look at the minutes, it's like their core girls are playing the majority of the minutes, just like LSU's.
Well, I think what you worry about is the size factor. And South Carolina's got a lot of size. And if Angel gets in foul trouble and has to go out, Aaliyah Del Rosario is a primetime player. Everybody in the country wanted her, including South Carolina. But it's kind of unfair to expect a true freshman to go in there in this kind of situation and just thrive. Now, she's improving, and I'm not saying she's not going to play well tomorrow. But to your point, no Samaya. And Anissa Morrow may be the most consistent player on the team. Michaela, I think, before it's all said and done, is the best player. But Anissa is undersized, too. She is not a big post player. They list her at 6 feet tall. So I think that's where your concern is. The LSU's guards are going to have to score. And Michaela may have to score 25. Van Lith may have to score 20 or so to pull this thing off.
If Michaela comes out and starts hitting some threes right off the bat, that arena is going to go berserk. And to me, I agree with you. She's got to have a big night. Del Rosario, I watch her, and part of me thinks, I don't think she realizes how dominant she can be. I mean, you throw it down her in the low post, and if she starts backing in, I'm sure they coach her about not putting the ball and dribbling too much. But she's got a great touch. I think the sky's the limit for her, but she is, like you said, just a freshman. And it's different for her. Her freshman is different than Michaela being a freshman.
I don't know if my eyes are fooling me or not. I think the strength and conditioning program at LSU's already knocked some weight off her. She looks a little more streamlined than the video I saw of her in high school. And they talk about Michaela too. They talk about, look, we need to get Michaela in better shape. She's still maybe not in the conditioning that we want her to be in. The one person I don't have any really basis for this, but I guess the one person I thought that might play a little bit more that hasn't is Angelica Velez. She hasn't really played a whole lot, and when she does come in, they take her out. So I don't know.
Well, obviously Samaya's injury and
Kateri.
Look, Kateri, this is where I think you miss Kateri Poole because of her defense, and her being able to give you some minutes there, and particularly if LSU is to get in some foul trouble,
and some attitude too, right? I mean, these are women, not guys, but they may talk more than the guys do, and they may be a little more brash and Kateri is not afraid to get in, somebody's face and say, hey, we're not intimidated by you.
Bar Smokey says, guys, I think our baseball team is going to be pretty good. Yeah, it's a busy deal for all of us because we've got what we had today, all the stuff that we're putting together, game tomorrow night. LSU Baseball Media Day is Friday, and I'm looking forward to that. And the weather is definitely going to be cleared out for that one, right? We get to go out there and see them out there, and that's always a good time. But boy, look at that top 10 from D1 baseball. It's all SEC, and they're picking Florida to be the top team, but Arkansas and LSU are right there as well. I think you have 6 teams in the top 10 from the SEC. It's going to be another amazing year, and something that they probably undersold the SEC, that there should be 8 or 9 in their top 25. I saw Mark Etheridge debating that last week. So
yeah, it's going to be a lot jammed into about 18 hours or so between the LSU South Carolina women's basketball game, go to bed, get up, and go to Ellick Box for for Baseball Media Day, and really just, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I remember the guys from last year, but I got to learn a whole lot of new players and who are these guys and all that. I went out to fall ball a couple of times during football season and got some video and whatnot. But yeah, here we go again, man.
So Friday is media day, and then the opener is 2 weeks from that, right?
I think it's 3.
Okay.
3 weeks. 3 weeks from Friday. Softball starts 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think. February 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that. Softball always starts a week earlier than baseball, but
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but is this the season for Beth Torina?
I think there were definitely some nervous conversations at the end of last year about, whether or not she was going to return for another season. I think there was a little bit of a scare in there. But obviously she's back. I think early on, she might have done too much too early. I think 4 of her first 6 teams went to the College World Series. I think a couple of those finished 4th in the country, 3rd, 5th, something like that. And then it was super regional heartache. A couple of times they could have gone and it didn't go their way. And then the last 2 years, obviously, they've made it to regionals and haven't gotten out of regionals. Last year was really tough because the Cajuns beat you twice in your own park to go to the Supers, and you didn't get out again.
Spectrum Well Care, Slade Nagel as a tight ends coach official. Yes, it is. It's all updated on the official LSU website, and Michael Bonnet sent out something earlier today. But all those hires that have been pretty much leaked in unison to media in the last several weeks, and all good. And of course, he's also LSU special teams coach on top of that.
So what happened to Bob Diaco? He's out? Or because he was a special teams guy, right? So I haven't. He's
if you look on the official site, he's still listed as a special teams coordinator and outside linebackers.
Okay, well,
so I think there's still some updates to come.
LSU going to return a punt past 10 yards next year? Is that the first goal? So I mean,
and I tell you what, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to make you laugh, but after me going overboard with all my predictions about Aaron Anderson in the return game, I'm keeping my mouth shut this spring.
What do you think the deal was there? He just never was healthy, or what?
Well, I mean, look, he muffed one, and then that was it for him. These guys, we've seen 3 guys muff them and be done.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, they went with the safe, hey, let's catch it, and our offense is really good. We go from there. So I wonder about a press conference too. Are we going to have maybe 2 different press conferences, one to introduce the defensive coaches, one to introduce the offense, or we already know Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, so maybe we don't need a press conference there.
Or do we kind of get a combo second signing period, signing day, first Wednesday in February, and coaches? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I hope we get Brian Kelly before then. But
I
doubt that we do.
Spring football, early March was when it starts.
Like
that.
I think it's going to be mid-March with 3rd week in April spring game, something like that. When you look at where Easter falls and kind of mid-March.
That spring game is always around April 25th, 6th, 7th, something like that.
Yeah, those are the fun days where you're doing 2 basketball teams, baseball, spring football. People will say, "Oh, well, this is your off season." No. Football season's easy, right? Spring is the worst.
From about mid-February to early April, and just from Channel 9's perspective, you got LSU and Southern. You've got your high school March Madness, girls, boys. You got your spring football, LSU, Southern. By the way, the Pelicans are pretty good at the moment. I mean, there's a lot to cover for sure. Absolutely. And a hockey team, the Zydeco.
I was about to throw that in there to see what you might say about that. All right. All right, guys, give Koala Insulation a call, 225-457-1001. Schedule your free energy efficiency assessment. Tell them you heard about them on TigerBait, and they're going to give you 7% off of your project. Team at Koala Installation of Baton Rouge, your residential, commercial, and energy efficiency experts. Nobody does it better than them, and they're going to save you a ton of money, whether it's the cold season where we had a bunch of 20-degree days last week, or when we have multiple 105-degree days in the summertime. If you keep your house on 72, when they go in there with the spray foam in your attic, and the maximum temperature you're going to have up there is probably 75. And that's going to make a world of a difference on your utility bills here in Louisiana. Give Koala a call. Please tell them you heard about them on TigerBait. All right, let's see.
By the way, Coach Mulkey yesterday during her coaches show said, if we win this game, don't you rush the court. We won the national championship last year. Act like you've been there before. So we'll see.
What are you expecting to see tomorrow? I kind of joked that, it's kind of time to see the tiger come out of the ceiling on a rope. But I think that's probably been a very long time since they've done that. I don't even know if they know who does that anymore.
Yeah. I expect the student section to be all over Dawn Staley. I hope they keep it clean.
I'm good with that.
I hope to keep it clean and classy and all that. And hopefully the post-game comments don't put me and you in the situation to have to ask an awkward question to the opposing coach like 2 years ago. So,
is her scowl the female version of Wimp Sanderson back in the day?
She wearing plaid coats? Look,
well, they asked her that today. You saw the press conference like I did with the South Carolina media, and they asked her about what she might wear to dress because of Kim, and she said, "No, I'm all about comfort." And so,
yeah, she wears like jerseys and stuff like that. And look, Dawn Staley, without a doubt, is one of the best coaches in college basketball history. She's younger than Kim Mulkey. She's won 2 national championships, and I don't think she's going away anytime soon. I just think sometimes some of those people get upset at some of those comments in press conferences, but you and I are white guys, so we don't know a lot of those fights that they deal with. So
yeah, Black No Borders with a super chat. Thank you for that. He said, my sister went to LSU while Bo was there in the early 2000s. Ladarian Williams, 6'5", 310, defensive tackle, Douglasville, Georgia, had an offer from LSU before Lindsey went down. Has Florida, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, USC, and more. Let's see how that plays out. I was going through LSU's defensive line offers. Obviously, LSU's offered several defensive tackles, a lot of them from the state of Texas, where he had a footprint already, having been recruiting and coaching at Texas for a while. Zion Williams came in for a visit, class of 25, defensive tackle with an offer. They're really going to need to bring in a nice haul of out-of-state defensive tackles on top of, of course, that's for 25, but the portal period in May is going to be, at the end of spring is going to be vitally important because you're going into spring football right now with Jacoby and Guillory and Jalen Lee as your top 2 interior defensive linemen. And so you're going to have a depth problem just from a practice standpoint. Now, I'm sure they brought in, what did we see the other day? They were tweeting out about walk-ons and but that helps you with practice, but they're going to need more than that. And of course, then there's all the conjecture about what they do to adapt to what they're working with. Do they go to a 3-man front and et cetera, and be more linebacker centric next season, just out of necessity?
I can answer Brad Davis' question. I see it in the live chat. Jacques, do you remember when Anthony Johnson pushed your camera back in 2013? Do you remember why he was upset? That was when, remember Lael Collins, right before he got the NFL draft, that he came out as a person of interest in that woman's murder, a very sad situation. So I think I got sent. Lael was eating at walk-ons, and I got sent by news or somebody to go out and shoot video of him leaving walk-ons. It was very TMZ-ish. I didn't like being there. but it was a situation that Anthony Johnson came charging out of walk-ons and said, "Man, you gotta get out of here. You can't be here." And then he was like pushing my camera away. And I had a pretty spicy response to Anthony. I didn't curse or anything. I just said something like, "Get your hand off my camera," And so that was I didn't enjoy that day at all.
How did I miss that?
It's 2003. Well, Twitter and everything wasn't as, it was there, but it wasn't as, I don't know. Those kind of videos weren't circulating as quickly as they are now for sure. And so, Brad, there's your story. He was upset that I was there. I was trying to shoot video of Lael Collins when all that stuff was circulating, and then his name got dropped, and then he went undrafted.
We've seen Tommy Tanks get a little irritated with the media a little bit in 1 year in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, he doesn't really like doing interviews a whole lot. Harold Perkins kind of pushed my mic down after a post game. There's my little marker lot right here. I was holding it up like that, and he just, I didn't think I was like, sticking it in his nose, but he kind of took his hand and he pushed my mic down. So that was funny. That happened after one of those games.
And it's not often we've gotten him.
No, he didn't talk
Huey Lipsy, Mike and Jacques, a lot of expectations for this team next season. We fans fall hard when we hype high and lose. LSU fans will not put up with the excuses. Man, again, like I was saying earlier, there's some things that I think most years would say this team's got a ceiling. But man, there's a lot of teams in the SEC that have issues. We kind of, in my case, I'm focusing on LSU line by line. And but man, when you look at that schedule, I haven't seen anything out of USC that leads me to believe that they're going to be markedly better than they were last season. You take care of business in the opener, and of course, it's been a while since LSU's won an opener. UCLA at home, Ole Miss at home. Texas A&M is going to have their issues with the first-year coach, but that is at College Station. It really does set up well for LSU if you can keep Nussmeier healthy, regardless of how much I think this defensive line, when you look at this defensive line, Jacques, I'm telling you, I think you've got to go back to the DiNardo years to find it where it was this bleak as of right now. and that has nothing to do with Bo Davis and the work he's going to get done, because there's a lot to be excited with what he's already done in a week to 10 days, I see. So
yeah, I know you and Buddy have talked about it, but obviously going before the bowl game, I think they had a feeling that they could get Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith to both come back. And even if Mason Smith did have an outstanding year, he's an experienced football player, and you want as many of those as you can get. Jordan Jefferson, his eligibility was exhausted. From what I gathered, he was never going to come back, or I guess he could have, but he wasn't going to do that. And so, and you talk about the schedule. I'm glancing at a little bit, that South Carolina game, the third game is one of those kind of tricky spots, South Carolina is certainly a Jekyll and Hyde team under young Beamer there. They've had games where they've soared and blown out Tennessee and won big games, and then they've had other games where they've just totally flopped. So, those kind of games.
I tell you what, it's anybody who's listening to the show the last 3 weeks is I was getting accused of being real negative, and then all of a sudden I'm flipping the script 180 degrees, because I've gone from thinking this team might be 7-5 or 8-4 to really thinking, does 10-2 get you in the playoffs? How many 10-2 teams are going to be out there? I think there's going to be a ton of them. I think you're going to have how many 10-2 teams might you just have in the SEC? Well, and so how pivotal does a game like Oklahoma to end the year matter?
Well, and it's going to be the same argument. It's just going to be what if SMU goes 11-1 or they're undefeated? Can you say a 12-0 SMU team is better than a 10-2 LSU team, or whatever the case may be for those playoff spots? But it's going to be a brand new world to be sitting around in December and putting on TV and watching college football teams on their campus stadium host a playoff game. It's gonna be amazing.
as bad as the bowls have gotten, and more you hear your friends and you read on message boards about how little of the lower bowls, lesser bowls that fans will actually tune in and watch. I'm imagining what the 12 team playoff is going to do to the lower bowls now. I think it's just going to finish them off. I think that's going to be the death knell for 2/3 of the bowl games.
I think people will watch them to an extent because it's football and it's holiday and they will. But is anybody going to buy a plane ticket and book a hotel and spend, if it's a couple, I mean, you're probably spending $3,000 or something like that to go to Tampa and watch LSU play in that Wisconsin and play against Wisconsin in the bowl game that just passed. So, I mean, are you really gonna do that, or are you gonna say, you know what, I'm saving my money for Omaha with LSU baseball or the next season's regular season games? I mean, the first game of the year, LSU played Florida State in Camping World Stadium, totally packed. 8 months earlier, or not 8 months, 8 months earlier, they play Purdue, and the place is maybe 30% full, in the same stadium. So that just goes to show you right there. People will go to the regular season games, the things that matter, the postseason exhibitions. And I still think bowl games move you up in the rankings and do some good things for you. If I'm Lance Hurd, am I sitting in Monroe or am I in Tampa playing football? I might go play football with my buddies in Tampa, but on national TV. But yeah, your points are on target.
All right, we'll pay one more bill, and it's Alumni Hall, folks. Of course, they're a partner of ours, and they're fantastic. Perkins Row, beautiful store. Go see them. Show off your Tiger pride. They've got everything you need. That place is wall-to-wall LSU gear. There isn't anything that you can imagine, and they've got a lot of new items. A lot of LSU baseball stuff has rolled in. LSU women's basketball T-shirts. We're still in the midst of cold weather. They've got all the quarter zip pullovers, sweatshirts. Go over there. Tell them you heard about them on TigerBait. LSU students, faculty, military, 10% off in-store every day. You can earn cash back with their Hall Pass rewards. Alumni Hall, located in Perkins Row, or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Tiger fans shop. And like everybody else, please tell them you heard about them on TigerBait. Jacques, before we head out, anything you want to add? I think a few people asked us for predictions on the game tomorrow night. Are you picking an LSU win?
There really is no upside or not for me to gain by making picks. I often say, Mike, I tell people to score after it happened. I'm glad I'm not Jay Grimes, Steve Caparata, and the guys that have to tell you what happens in advance, and they do an awesome job. Do something right, nobody remembers. Do something wrong, nobody forgets. But, my gut tells me that South Carolina is going to win this game. But I will go there hoping that LSU will win and that the crowd carries them through and gets South Carolina a bit rattled, although this team, they're not going to be rattled easily.
You need to get to a fast start. You can't open up like you did last year in Columbia. Got to get off to a fast start. And again, if Michaela or Van Lith, or even if it's just getting it down low in the Angel and letting her turn around and get some things done. Of course, that's easier said than done with their size advantage inside and what they're probably going to collapse down on her. But LSU's going to have to hit some outside shots.
Well, Angel's a good point because last year I think she had 7 points through 3 quarters or something like that. Aaliyah Boston. Like one time, Rouge tried to take it to her, and Boston just put her hands up and blocked the shot. I mean, she got a bit embarrassed last year in Columbia, and she talked about that all down the stretch, and that was a motivator as she played well in the tournament, and LSU won the whole title. So I'm very interested to see how motivated. A lot of those players are gone from South Carolina, but it's still South Carolina, and she knows how many people are watching.
I think where Angel can really do some damage is at the free throw line. So if you feed her down low, she's got to go up strong and let them, get them committing fouls. And then she'll do her damage at the free throw line. But one thing about Angel Reese too, and it's different for her this year, is look at some of the passes that she's been making. So if Michaela or Van Lith or Morrow are hitting an outside shot, and it don't have to be threes all the time, and she's able to, kick it back out because they collapse down on her, and Michaela sinks one, that's all you need. And then take the fouls.
Yeah. Well,
Try and get them in foul trouble.
And Van Lith, she left Louisville to be in a game like this too, right? I mean, she's going to be highly motivated to show that, hey, I can play against South Carolina and I can be good. And then, Michaela, you just wonder, is she going to try to do too much? She realizes this is the big game and everything. But she's so good, man. She's so good.
Well, Jacques, you go way back with women's basketball. I mean, you were there, through, Gunner and Pokey and on and on.
Van Chancellor.
If this game tomorrow night is the biggest home game of all time, what would be second?
Well, I remember
it's got to be a Tennessee game, right?
Well, they played 2 games against Tennessee. It was like 05, and there was maybe one in 06. They sold out the whole building, and that was when the PMAC used to seat 15,000. They had the different colored seats. They were purple, yellow, purple, all the different colored seats. And Tennessee had Candace Parker, and Pat Summitt obviously was the head coach. And I mean, that was just people as far as the eye could see. LSU lost one to Tennessee, and then they beat Tennessee in another game that had sold out. But but that was before today's social media world where everyone's talking. We're all connected more. So I don't know. I don't know if this one's more anticipated than those, but I don't think Tennessee.
This one has to, Jacques. This one has to be. We've been talking about this South Carolina home game. I mean, since September. I mean, think about how early this really all started. I mean, we had our first opportunity with Mulkey and the team in October, mid-October.
Yeah,
I mean, it was early, and it's been a steady drumbeat of. Well, then you waited for the schedule, right, to see when it was going to hit, and then they got them on a Thursday night, and but boy, this is going to be something. I mean, we're going on and on about it, but I think rightfully so. There's a lot. The excitement for this one is warranted.
Well, and real quick, it's not the situation that I anticipated, or a lot of people anticipated, when South Carolina loses all that talent off of last year's team. And LSU gets Haley Van Lith and Anissa Morrow and Michaela Williams and everything. You're thinking, oh, man, when South Carolina comes on the PMAC, LSU might drub them. Well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's yet to be seen. But obviously, South Carolina, as we talked about.
It's reversed. Wasn't South Carolina in one of the first polls in the back end of the top 10? It's reversed.
So. I mean, they came out first game and beat Notre Dame by 40 or something like that. They beat Kentucky by 62 the other day. And they went to Texas A&M. I watched about 10 minutes of that on the YouTube, College Station. They were all doing all their noise and stuff. 18-0, South Carolina out in front right away. So they're pretty strong. Salty.
All right, we're gonna have it all for you on TigerBait, and Jacques gonna have it all for you on AFB and all the lead into it. I'm sure you're gonna be live at 5 and 6 and everything, right?
Yeah, we're going to be getting, I think they opened the PMAC for the media at 4:00. So we might be getting there about that time to start, hitting some stuff up. Simone Augusta is supposed to come meet up with us to chat and do some different stuff. And Red Rock and Blue, if anybody wants to sponsor and get involved, please let me know to, benefit Louisiana military charities. It'll be out soon, but Atomic Punks.
Man, I should have downloaded that. Atomic Punks, April, hit it.
Atomic Punks, ultimate tribute to classic Van Halen, will be at Chelsea's Live April 13th. And Joey Holloway and some guys will play some classic Aerosmith and everything to open up. Maybe slip in a little Van Hagar here and there.
I'll be there. Chelsea's is a great venue if you haven't been there. Great cause. And the Atomic Punks has played Red Rock and Blue before, and they're fantastic playing early Van Halen. And their guitar player does a great job getting all the licks of Eddie Van Halen correct.
That's a tough gig. It's like being the drummer in a Rush band or the singer in a Journey band or guitars.
Yeah, I've been working, just so y'all know, I've been working Jacques over to try and find a Rush tribute band, but we haven't nailed one down yet.
Well, not to bore, but the Van Halen band, the drummer, he did one. I think they were called Moving Pictures. It was a Rush band. Just not a whole lot of people booked them. You know, you don't get a whole lot of women that like Rush. You know, you want Journey and Bon Jovi, the stuff that, you know, what the guys and the girls love. So Rush, that's a guy's band.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Jacques. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Great show. And we'll see you guys next week. And again, Jacques, thanks for filling in for Buddy. It was a great one.
All right. Thanks for having me, Mike. See you later, buddy.
All right. Good night, everybody.